Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. My name is Sheila Hession, and I'm the Executive Director of Sales at the MGM National Harbor, and then I'm also the HSMAI DC Chapter Advisory Board Chair again this year. During the time of the pandemic, we want to stay connected with you, and this webinar, along with two others that we're producing, will be one way of maintaining this connection. So let me introduce you to our speaker, Tammy Carlisle, Digital Marketing Thought Leader. Over the last 20 years, Tammy's career has spanned working in digital roles at major branded hotels such as Westin and Wyndham, and then with Milestone, where she brings her digital experience to hundreds of hotels daily. Currently, Tammy heads the hospitality division at Milestone and is responsible for digital marketing engagement with major customers and hotel groups. She's a widely regarded digital marketing specialist and a regular speaker and contributor at various hospitality conferences such as HSMAI, CHLA, AAHOA. In addition, she speaks at internal digital forums for different brands and hotel management companies. And Tammy is also a member of the HSMAI Marketing Advisory Board. Thank you, Tammy, for joining us today, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Sheila. Welcome, everyone. So excited to be here with you today. So the goal is we're going to spend some time and talk through 10 ideas to improve booking performance during the crisis. And within that, I'll kind of tell you where this came from and kind of what the thoughts are and how we're going to structure today. So this actually came from an article that our marketing team wrote probably 6 weeks ago now, that I will tell you is half out of date because let's be real, things have changed on the daily for the last 6 weeks. And so have really updated and really tried to give you guys some insight into what's going on, where we're seeing success, and some things to be thinking about as we come out of crisis mode and into what we're calling recovery and growth. So a few housekeeping items. We'll be sharing the deck, so you'll have access to the deck. Don't feel like you have to take copious notes. Definitely listen along. If you have questions, please ask them in that question box that you have in front of you. We will be, as we go along and to have questions, we'll definitely be stopping to answer those throughout. Don't look at this like me sitting here with a bullhorn just blasting to you. And then lastly, there's going to be a good mix, I think, of marketing and sales ideas to think about, to take back to your hotels. I know that for some of you, I know for actually probably a great many of you, your properties aren't open today. So it's thinking about not only for those of you who are open, how you can try and capitalize on business right now, but also what can you be doing during this downtime? I'm laughing downtime. I think we're all working twice as hard for half the results. But what can you be doing during this downtime to set your property up for success as you go forward? So Sheila did a great job introducing me, so I'm going to just kind of move on. And a couple things, I want to start with a couple of studies and results and some stats and things that I've heard. First rule, we've all been through, many of us have been through this. The first rule, an economic downturn is always going to end. So I looked at a study the other day that talked about the impact of 9/11 versus the downturn in 2007 to 2009 versus now. And what it was showing is that the trough, the peak of the impact is a lot worse for this crisis versus some of those others, but that the recovery was going to happen much quicker too. And we're starting to see, this is a study through Longwoods, and there's actually was an April 15th one that I just saw last night, and I apologize, I should have updated the slide and didn't. That even showed, I think it was 72%. Starting to see travelers with travel plans in the next 6 months. So people are still looking to travel. I have to tell you, I actually have a trip that is still tentatively planned for Europe for July that I know I am being insane when I think there's even a snowball's chance it's going to happen, but we have not canceled anything just yet. We're just kind of waiting and seeing at this point. So people are planning to travel. You may have seen GBTA just published a study. And again, if you want some of these, the ones that I have graphs for are in the slide deck. But if you want some of the others, just message me and I'll be happy to send you links. But GBTA just released a study, and they're saying that 88% expect that once restrictions are lifted, that their employees are going to want to travel. So it's not an issue, and would be able to travel. And that's, our corporate travelers. And I know everyone thinks that leisure is going to come back first. I tend to agree with that, but business travel is going to come back as well, right? So when it comes to, travel, so again, thinking about leisure, this is a great study for my friends over at Fuel Travel, and talking about, do you intend to take a vacation this year or next? And have you already booked your future stay? And as you can see, almost 60% of folks plan on taking a vacation this year. I don't know about you guys, but after this is all done, like, I want to get out. They're talking about quarantine fatigue, and people are just ready to travel and ready to do stuff. So we're seeing that more and more people are looking to travel late Q2, I think Q3 and Q4 is probably the more optimistic, and that a lot of those people have not already booked their future stay. So there's opportunities to really capitalize and really hone in on those folks. So with that in mind, what the team at Milestone has done is we've kind of capitalized our thought process into three main areas. So thinking through crisis or recovery and growth. And so it's thinking about, okay, what do we absolutely have to do? What's kind of bare minimum to get us through where we're at today? And fingers crossed, I was talking with my team this morning, all the indicators I sees that we've hit that trough, and, granted it's a little slow, and I think we all, I was at the marketing strategy conference in January, and if anyone had told me in January in New York that we would be celebrating 40% occupancy, I think we would have asked for a straitjacket for the person. And now we're like, woohoo, China's at 40%, occupancy. That's fantastic. And so we want to really think about, what do you need to do today to make sure your hotel, if you're open, is maximizing every bit you can. And if you're closed, what are you doing and what are you thinking about to help with that opening? And then as we start to shift out of crisis mode, as your market starts to lift restrictions, as people are able to travel, as they're able to do things, how are you maximizing recovery and growth? How are you maximizing those things so that when all is said and done, you come out ahead? So there's definitely some things we're going to talk about. I would absolutely say you want to be connecting with leaders in your local markets to see what's going on as far as time frame for lifting restrictions. I was just listening to a podcast yesterday. I'm a huge Disney fan, talking about what's going on in Orlando and some of the not only to open Disney World, but then also what the hotels, some of the policies and procedures they're going to have to go through for opening. How is that going to impact things like your group events, and what is, a 6 foot, what does that mean? Do you really, is it 1%? Like how does all of that play out so that you can get back to the business of getting people in your hotels safely, but also obviously to start building revenue? I'm going to start on the marketing side of things, and I'm going to suggest one of the first things you do right now is to start really thinking about updating the content on your current website, making sure that you're, I love this, addressing the issues, but you need to be talking about what's going on, right? You need to be talking about what is the property doing? So first of all, you're either open or you're closed. But what are you doing related to COVID-19? How have your cleanliness policies changed? Do you have new tools to make the rooms more sanitized, safer, better, faster, stronger, all of those things? How have your cancellation policies changed? What are you doing to be guest friendly? The more information that you have, it shows the customers that you care and really helps keep your guests informed and updated. And we highly recommend that not only are you just going in and doing this at the beginning, which a lot of you probably already have, but that you're looking through every few days to make sure, has that information changed? Because again, things are so fluid and things are changing so frequently, and making sure that you're staying on top of the website, making sure that the information is accurate and that you're actually, really closely managing your response to the actual crisis. In addition to that, use your website as a tool to help continue to engage and increase your digital relevance. So if you think about again, open or shut. This is an example of a property. This is a resort in Mexico, and what they're doing is they've got this whole series they've put together about, hashtag better together. And so everything from, they have a banner on their website that leads to a landing page and activities. They've had coloring recipes. They've got things like you make your own cupcakes. Which a little later, I think I have an example of their margarita making skills. They have, calls to action, to soft conversions, and trying to get people to remember and engage with them even during this time when they're not taking on guests, right? So it's keeping yourself relevant to your customers, keeping, a lot of people have more free time right now, and they're definitely engaged more on social channels. And I would argue that not only does this apply to channels like Facebook and your website, but LinkedIn and other sources as well. The more you can stay engaged and out there, the better you're going to be, and also the more top of mind you're going to be when someone does have a need. I actually am part of a hospitality group on Facebook, and someone just posted 2 days ago how excited they were that they booked a group of 30 room nights per night over 5 nights, and just beyond thrilled with themselves. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that was and how they did that as we go through. Another thing, anybody that knows Milestone knows that we're big believers in voice search. That I have the Amazon box sitting next to me, so I won't say her name because I'll set her off. But voice search is huge. It's really impacting search, and Comscore is expecting voice to be 50% of all search by the end of this year. So you can see the types of activities that people are doing while using voice search, and some interesting things just related to the virus and what's going on. Amazon's device and Google's doing some interesting things, can now help you actually diagnose, right? It'll be able to give you symptoms and things like that. So how is this relevant, and how does this make sense for hotels? Well, first of all, this is really relevant when you think about restaurants, and especially as things start to open up again. What are your policies? How are you making sure you're maintaining my safety while allowing me to sit in the restaurant and eat, right? All of those types of things. And I would argue the same thing for a hotel. We're thinking about, if we can't go to Europe, what do we want to do this summer? How do we want to get out? And where are we going to be able to do that safely, while enjoying ourselves, right? Getting away. And so it's really important to have that information out there, because people are using voice. Voice also and FAQs lead to increased visibility. So I would highly recommend, and this is an example that's not COVID related, but go back to Google, to our friend at Google, and just start Googling questions around your hotel. Like, does Washington Hotel XYZ allow pets? Does Washington Hotel XYZ have an airport shuttle, right? Think about the types of questions. What is a Hotel XYZ's cleaning policies? And see what kind of information comes up. So you'll see in this example that the example on the left, and it might be a little bit small to read. Hopefully you guys can see that okay. They've asked the question, does Hotel Nikko allow pets? And you'll notice there's this beautiful, it's called the answer box, or sometimes you'll hear it called position 0. There's this whole question and picture coming from the hotel's website, from their FAQ section, about the fact that they allow pets and what the policies are. If you look at the property on the right-hand side, there's an answer box, and it's talking about the policies of pets. But if you notice, that answer is coming from a website called Bring Fido. It's not coming from the hotel's own website. So the idea is you want to make sure by adding that content, by adding that information, that you're helping yourself when people are searching for things that are relevant. And I'd also highly recommend this, when it's come to what's going on with COVID, right? Talk about the things that you're doing, think about the types of questions you would have as a traveler or consumer, and make sure those are being answered on your website, because that's going to help you within search. Another big thing is mobile, which is especially critical right now. You would think that everyone's home, so they're on their laptops or their desktop more, but we're actually seeing quite the opposite. We're seeing that mobile traffic still is remaining as dominant, with over 50% of traffic. And what's happening is, especially Google, and I'm saying Google, but all the search engines, as they move to mobile first indexing, as they move to using mobile as the benchmarks, if you're not fast, if your page load time is horrific, as you can see, the probability of people bouncing or leaving you goes up dramatically. And so we highly recommend in this setting, especially for those of you that have independent websites. If you're a branded property, you're constrained by what your brand does. But for your independent websites, that could be your restaurant site, it could be others, making sure that your page speeds are good. And again, happy to share there's a test that Google has. It's free, and you can test and see what your mobile speeds look like. In addition to speed, really important to think through, how am I going to convert on mobile as we come out of the crisis? Making sure that you've got great calls to action. You're talking about offers, news, updates. You're talking about your cancellation policies and how things have changed. You're making it very easy for someone to book. So if you have multiple opportunities for conversion, right? So maybe you have a restaurant, a rooftop bar, you've got obviously the hotel rooms, and then you're trying to generate RFPs. Like, have all of those options easily available on the website. And then think about ways that on mobile you can do geo-targeted content, right? So for those of you, in your market, the first to come back is going to be the drive markets, right? So how do you target New York? How do you target some of the, New Jersey or some of the other feeder markets that are coming into DC, especially those people in markets that were hard hit, that again are looking to get out and get away as restrictions are lifted? And how can you take advantage and capitalize on that? I'm going to take a quick breather here. Sheila, Kathy, do you guys see, is there any questions from the group thus far?
There's no questions at this time. There was just the one about the presentation, and we've already answered that they're going to get a link after that. So nothing at this time.
Perfect. Thanks, Sheila. And just so you know, I'm not seeing the question. So yes, we'll give everyone a link to the presentation. So I'll stop again a little further on, but if any questions come up that you think are important, please definitely let me know. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit and talk about local search and why this is so important. So you want to think about from a consumer's perspective. If I'm trying to get to your property, especially in a time like this, I want to use your restaurant. Do I know if you're open or closed? Do I know if you're allowing takeout or you're just not there at all? Do I know if your hotel is open? Very important to make sure that your Google My Business, your Bing Local, your Yelp profile, all of your different sources out there that consumers are going to get information is updated. Because those in turn, sources like GMB, Google My Business, Yelp, Foursquare, power things like Uber and Lyft and Waze and other sources. So I'm going to spend just a minute talking about Google My Business, but I think it's one of the most important. Really, it's really sad when I look at this map. So I actually took this screenshot, that middle section the other day. So I live in California. I actually can walk to Winchester Mystery House. I don't know that that's a big woohoo, but I can walk to Winchester Mystery House from my house. I can also Santana Row, Valley Fair, which is our big malls out here. And seeing the temporary closed is kind of sad. But what's happening is, that's good for consumers, right? The idea is if you're not open, by marking yourself as temporarily closed, you're allowing your consumers to see that and to know that information. They're not having to hunt around for it. One of the questions that frequently comes up is, historically, if you've marked yourself as closed on GMB, that has impacted your search rankings, your SEO. And so people were hesitant to do that because the last thing you want to do is screw yourself even more as we're trying to come out of this. So Google has come out and publicly said as of the end of March that no, they will not penalize businesses for marking themselves as temporarily closed right now on Google. So I'd highly recommend, from an SEO perspective, from a consumer perspective, it makes sense to do this. Now, some of you may not be doing this, and there may be other reasons. I've talked to, I know at least one group that in certain markets, there's ordinances around if they truly, actually list closed, then policies and things they have to do when opening back up. So make sure that you're talking to your brand, your management company, or your ownership group about what the potential liabilities are. But from a consumer perspective, I think this is a good thing. From an SEO perspective, there is no harm in doing this. Another thing you can do is update special hours. So your outlets, you can talk about, the hours of service that you have, make it very clear what those hours are, because again, it gets really confusing to the user. I've actually had this happen where something said they were closed on maps only to find out they were open, and vice versa. So really important to make sure you're updating any special hours. Maybe your restaurant's only open now for dinner, whereas it used to be open all day. Maybe it's only open certain days of the week. This is a restaurant chain that we really enjoy out here. It's a great burger, and they're only open right now Wednesday through Sunday. So they actually have updated that information on their Google My Business profile. Another thing Google has allowed that really impacts on the restaurant and outlet side is you can mark if dine-in, takeout, delivery. Here in the Bay Area, nobody's doing dine-in, but a lot of groups are doing takeout and delivery. Another thing Google has said is that they won't penalize anyone right now. So you'll notice on the screenshot here, the spot to be restaurant, curbside takeout available. Used to be if you changed your name to add qualifiers, that could actually hurt you. Google has said, at least in the short term while this is going on, they're not going to penalize anyone for adding like a curbside takeout or delivery available kind of information. So another thing to think about as you're trying to communicate with guests. And then lastly, on the local side, unfortunately, this is not yet available for hotels, although they just rolled this out for brands, so I think you're going to start to see it. But they have Google Posts within the Google My Business, the local listing, and you can create posts around things like COVID-19 updates. So this is great for your outlets, your spa, your restaurant, other outlet sources to, again, communicate with your customers and keep them up to date. And the second this rolls out for hotels, this to me is a fantastic area to be talking about the types of things that you're doing to make sure that your hotel is safe for that traveler, that meeting planner, that company to send their travelers to. So I'm going to take a quick breath here and just ask Sheila, just confirm before I move on to the next section if there's any questions at this point.
Hey, Tammy, there is a question, and it's coming from Monica Schmidt. She said that one issue they've encountered with the GMB temporary closure feature is that hotels are precluded from Google Meta Search, even for future dates where the property is still permitting reservations. And is there a workaround for this?
That is a great question. Yeah, that is a great question. And unfortunately, as of today that I know of, there isn't a workaround. So it's either one or the other. And first of all, I want to applaud you guys for even thinking of running Google Meta Search. It's such a great thing for future dates. It's like people are still traveling. You should absolutely be doing that if you can. But I know so many businesses that have said, nope, not running any paid search right now. And, to me, that's something you want to be doing to get yourself out of that. As far as I know, there isn't a workaround right now, but I will confirm with our Google team, and Monica, I'll reach out and let you guys know. I'll share with the chapter so that we can share that with everyone. Perfect.
And there's one more that just came through, and this one, the question is, one second. Do you think Google still looks at title tags?
That's a great question.
Oh, I'm sorry, maybe H1 tags?
H1, yeah, so yeah, not related to local, more related on the website front, but yeah, so what an H1 tag is, just for those of you that may not know. So think about when I come to your website, usually I see this big, beautiful hero image, and then underneath it is a title and some content. If the website programmer, I won't say does their job, but typically that title is an H1. It's called a header tag or an H1 tag. And I always used to use the analogy of, think of the newspaper headline, like when the newspaper is in the box and you're walking by, your eye is drawn to that headline, and the search engines work in much the same way. I would argue that there is still some value in your H1 tags. I don't think it's quite as valuable as it was, say, 10 years ago, but I look at SEO like a big puzzle. So think about that 2,000 piece jigsaw puzzle that you've just dumped out on the floor. When you first start it, you're looking at the box, right? But as you start to put pieces in place, it gets easier to see the picture. So not having H1 tags in and of itself is not going to be like the death knell, or, you know, oh my gosh, I can't believe you don't have a, you know, H1 tags, you're screwed. But it is one piece of the puzzle that does add up to overall, like if everything else is equal, yes, if you have them, you should rank, perform better than your competitor that doesn't have them. As we all know, not all else is equal in the world, so it comes to play. But yeah, I would highly recommend, I think H1 tags still have value. Now, if we're talking about meta tags, totally different story. They're not looking at meta tags anymore because too many people tried to stuff them with crazy keywords that made no sense. Awesome. So now let's move on a little bit. Let's talk about kind of adjusting some of your metrics, right? So we used to look at revenue. We still look at revenue, but start looking at other things as well. Like, what's your share of voice right now? How are you engaged versus your competitors? There's a lot of free tools out there. This is actually a milestone presence report, but there's a lot of tools out there that will give you some information on what your competitors are doing, how they're faring, give you content ideas and strategy. You know, I just tell people not to fixate on keywords per se, but it'll give you some information on content types. And then also, how's your website? You know, what's your speed versus your competition? How's your health of your website? What are you doing? So that's one thing you should be looking at from a marketing side. Now I'm going to flip and think about it from, in my mind, a little more on the sales side, although this applies to marketing as well. So we're talking about how everyone is talking about how leisure is going to come back first, and it's going to be more local. Like, people are going to be more likely to drive 3 or 4 hours than they will be to get on a plane and travel, right? So really, now's a great time to start thinking about your teams. How are you going to increase that local business? How are you going to make sure that you're responding to every RFP, that you're looking at opportunities that may be outside of the targets that you used to go after, depending upon your hotel and your audiences? And then think through, okay, realistically, the first thing on the group side to come back is going to be smaller groups, right? I think people are going to be hesitant to have, you know, 50,000 people meetings right now. So how do you find those smaller groups? What can you do? You'll go back through, look at your business for the last couple of years, look at your lost business, right? And see, you know, are they repeating events you can pull back? What about local businesses? As travel starts up again and they have employees coming into their offices or their locations, they may need a place to stay, right? So it's a lot of it's the same stuff we've always done, but it's thinking about it with a slightly different eye. Teams, unfortunately, I think this one's going to be off the table through the summer. I don't foresee a lot of youth sports groups or the types of teams that we're used to traveling right now. But I do think, I'm hopeful, and again, I know I'm an eternal optimist, but I'm hopeful that by fall we start having sport travel and things coming back again. There's a lot of talk about, I just saw on the news yesterday, the Major League Baseball trying to get 100 game season in and breaking the league into 3 teams of 10 and actually having them play games without fans. Okay, so you're not going to have a fan base in the stands or traveling, but those teams will still need to travel, right? So there's still opportunities to get around those. People are still planning weddings. Maybe now they're not planning weddings till next year, but I know one hotel that about 4 weeks ago closed 7 weddings in 1 week because they were one of the only ones that had people actually aggressively focusing on weddings. And said a lot of my competitors, they're closed, they don't have a sales team, they don't have anybody. So I'm just, taking advantage and raking it in. So a lot of things to be thinking about. Now, for those of you guys that are still open, again, think outside your normal markets and audiences. So I have a colleague who's on the board for the LA chapter of HSMAI, and he was on a call with the board teams, and one of the hotels, the person we're talking about, they're running amazing occupancy. I mean, 60, 70, 80% occupancy right now. And the way that she did it was really just started tactically thinking through, okay, who's traveling right now and where can I get business from? So she contacted the mayor's office, the county, both the health directors, the county and city supervisors' offices, the governor's office, right? The U.S. General Services. So think government, think outside, think about major aid and disaster. I know of a hotel in Florida that got a huge contract with National Guard. I also know, I'd mentioned that Facebook group and someone booking 30 plus rooms for 5 nights. It was a National Guard troop. So there's a lot of opportunity for those of you guys that are open and are running, skeleton crews to try and get more business. And I would argue that even now, right? Because then the mentality I heard is, well, yeah, I should have done that a month ago. It's too late now. It's not too late now. Every week I keep seeing more deals, more things. The city or state of New York is doing this and California is doing this. And so I don't think it's too late to get in. If you're open and you're trying to struggle to find some business, here are some ways to do that. Like think about what books. Another thing that we don't have on here is, what about, you think about the supply chain, right? There's a lot of talk about these long haul truckers. There's a lot of talk about some of the plants that are open, and still need travel. So if you're near a distribution facility or a plant, like how do you tap into that business? And that may not have been business that was lucrative or valuable to you 6 months ago, but right now it can mean the difference between 20% occupancy and 60% occupancy. So really think outside what your normal market and audiences are. My team does that every day. We're spending, we have a stand-up huddle in the morning, and we're talking about who's buying, what are we seeing in the market, how do we help our hotels, and then what else can we be doing? Who else can we go out after and talk to outside of our norm? And then what can we do to help people? So one of the things is doing webinars like this and giving back and trying to help people from an education standpoint. So again, think about how you can do that. Think about things like developing messaging around staycation. So again, we know that it's going to be local audiences first. So hyper target to that. Maybe don't do a national paid search campaign, but focus your paid advertising on those drive markets that make sense. I've talked to people, in fact, I was on a marketing advisory board call where the Google rep said that certain key phrases right now the bids are like 1 and 2 cents. It's ridiculously cheap. So if you can take advantage, if you have any budget at all, it might be worth trying to target some of these folks for, like I said, future outstays when people are wanting to, get away from the, I love my family. I like where I live. I got to tell you, I'm dying to travel. And I know a lot of people are in the same boat. Then think about things like how do you bundle what you're doing? So again, you're targeting that local person. What other things can you do? What can you do as far as, maybe some upgraded rooms options, or, getaway packages, right? That include in-room movies and, we'll deliver a pizza, right? No content, we'll leave it outside your door. We'll knock 3 times and walk away. What kind of entertainment or things, can you offer? And get creative in how you do it. I thought this was interesting. One of the things you might look at tapping into, especially right now while people are on lockdown and are looking for ways to engage. So this was a great website that talked about things to do this weekend in DC, the stay-at-home edition. So how can you tap into certain things like that today to engage, but then also as you think creatively on how you're going to come out of this? How are you going to package your rooms, package what you do in a way to try and drive more business? Actually, before I move on here, I'm gonna stop for a minute. Sheila, are there any questions at this point?
Hi, Cami. No, there's no more additional questions at this time.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, sorry guys, unfortunately I can't see, I can see a blank question box. I don't see the actual questions, and we want to make sure they're answered throughout. So thank you for your patience as we go through that. So I'm gonna shift a little bit and talk about CRM, email marketing. Whether or not you have a CRM or you're just doing email marketing, what can you do to improve your list? Like clean out your data, segment, tag, right? Think about the types of audiences. The more you can do to improve what you're doing with your email strategy, with your CRM, right? Are you using all the features and functionality? I would argue the answer for 90% of us is no, including my team. You know, we use Salesforce, and we've been talking a lot about how do we improve what we're doing so that we can be more efficient as we come out of this. As we know, look, people are going to start to book again at some point, and you're going to get busy again. Now's a great time to lay that foundation. And on the email side of things, it's what can you do to plan a strategy, clean things out so that you have the opportunity to improve. Make sure you're improving your outreach with email. So what can you do to help get more people to sign up? What can you do to update your audiences? And, create content, create emails that are engaging, that have rich information, that aren't just a rah look at our hotel, but talk about what's going on in the market, especially if you're lifting restrictions. And hey, we just got the word June 1st, we're going to be ready for you, and here's the 10 things we're doing to make your life easier when you travel. And here's an exclusive offer just for you for sticking it out with us, right? Something like that can really help amplify all the other things you're doing. Then a lot of hotels are doing a great job right now of taking social media and using that to engage. And hotels, businesses, Nico had this great post early on about, hey, we're all in this together. Here's some things you can do to keep not only yourself, but our city healthy during this time. And they just a very simple list around social distancing, washing your hands, the basic we should all know, but sometimes they need to be said. Expedia has done a lot of stuff about polls and questions, like what's your favorite activity or staycation? And you do things like this, you start to gather sentiment. Sprinkles realized pretty quickly on that, hey, we can't have people coming into our restaurants. You know what? We now have same-day delivery and curbside, and you can actually shop now right from Facebook and get cupcakes. And I've seen that with a lot of places, not just restaurants, but shoot, Color Me Mine is even doing pottery. They'll deliver the pottery and the paint to your house, and it's not the fired version, it's acrylic, so it'll dry quick. But there's all these businesses that are pivoting and coming up with ways to engage with their customers, ways to collect information based on the responses that they're getting, and then using information on social to also help to communicate what's going on, but also to educate. So this is that resort I was telling you guys about earlier. I showed you their website and their landing page and the details here, but they're also using their social channels to communicate with their guests. They have this great note from the president of the resort talking about how we're going to get through this together. And then they've been doing various things. My favorite, surprisingly, as much as I'm a hotelier, was not the margarita cocktail. It was the sugar scrub or the coconut scrub. Because I don't know about you guys, but the first couple of weeks after washing my hands, I was like, oh my God, like my hands feel awful. So having a scrub, doing little things, and it makes me think of them every time I use it. So kind of cool things. And then other businesses have been innovating. And so it's really, take a few minutes to think outside the box. What can you be doing? Aquariums around the country are doing live videos. The Monterey Bay Aquarium here locally is doing these great meditation, yoga. It's really cool stuff. What can you do from a hotel perspective to flip the script so that you're engaging with those customers, and when they're ready to come back, they come back to you? Lastly, a lot of the clients that we've been talking to have paused paid campaigns, especially if their hotel's not open, but really think about what you're going to do to regain that presence. Again, advertising right now is at an all-time low because I think Google lost 90% of their advertising by the end of March because people just stopped advertising, right? No money coming in. I don't want to spend money. I get it. But start thinking about, to the question, I think it was Monica that asked earlier, right? If you have the opportunity, you're going to be open in July or August, why not have advertising going on Meta? Why not have some paid search or even maybe some Expedia or some of the other OTA channels where you can pick dates and pick dates far out in the future, where right now you've got wide open opportunity, right? So it's really thinking through, how do you scale? How do you align with what are your unique selling points? How do you scale based on the markets that are going to come back? And then monitor what your competitors are doing too, just to kind of make sure where are you fitting in, where are you aligning. You don't want to copy them, but you want to know if someone's way ahead of you on the curve, what things could you be doing to steal share? So on that note, just to kind of tie it all together, so 10 ideas, we've talked through a lot, making sure, to me, really thinking through how can you be different. I'm not going to read through each one of these, I think y'all can, but really thinking through how can you be different? How can you go out there and find that business? How can you determine who is potential to buy today if you're open, and who has the potential to buy next week, next month, when things come back. More and more areas of the country are starting to look at opening up. I know in the DC area, at least because we have an office in Maryland, so everything I hear is at end of May, June, I think June 10th at one point. But you're starting to see other regions of the country look to open up. So I think depending upon the success there, we'll start to hopefully see some easing here. I know my county just got hit with a more lockdown until the end of May. So it's like, and we're all just dying. Like I said, the quarantine fatigue is real. So making sure you're taking advantage of this time to really think through and get creative, and then make sure you've got your foundation set so that as we come out of this, you come out of this better and stronger, and your hotel comes out of this more successful. On that note, a few things we talked about, I talked about some of the things on the website front and mobile speed and content and all of that. I have a link here, go.milestoneinternet.com/HSMAIDC. If you go to this link, it's a Google form, you can sign up, and my team, we will do a complimentary site audit. We'll give you some insight into where you stand today. This is free, and either myself or someone on my team will just talk through it with you to make sure you will fully understand, so that as you're getting ready to come out of all of this, you know where your holes are and where you have opportunities to grow. On that note, I want to thank you so much for your time. I will go ahead and open it up to Q&A, and then if there's no Q&A, I will turn it over to Sheila. So Sheila is there, and I guess now it's your time, guys. If you have questions, please type them in the box. And then Sheila, any questions that you've seen?
So Tammy, there is one question. So it's a clarifying question from Gordon. He says that, do you still think that Google looks at title tags?
At title tag, so title tags, yes. Meta tags, no. Let me see. Hey guys, and I'm gonna apologize for a minute. I like to play. Actually, you know what, Gordon? So if you want to send me a quick note, I can walk through. But so yeah, so title tag is the title of your web page. Yes, they're still looking at title tags. Meta tags are those little keywords that gets, and I'm going to use the word stuff, but they get put that are in the source code. So the title and the meta description, yes. Meta tags, no.
What about H1 tags, Tammy?
So H1s, yes, they're still looking at. Again, you got to think about this all as part of a big cohesive package, right? So it's not there's no magic pill like, oh, if you just have the right H1 tag, everything's going to be perfect. But they're looking at all of these components together. There's a great search engine, the periodic table of SEO success. Again, happy to find it and send out the most recent one that talks through the important things. So there's a lot of things within content, but there's also a lot of things within technical SEO. So your site speed. We didn't even really spend time talking about schema or some of those things, because again, it gets a little more technical, and it's usually, hopefully your agency's taking care of that for you. And if you're a branded property, you're constrained by the brand. So I find that I can bring it up in webinars, but you can't do much to fix it per se unless you switch agencies or an independent property. So, but yeah, titles, H1s, there's still value in those. But is it like, oh my gosh, if I have the perfect H1 tag, I'll rank for every term under the sun? No.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Of course. Were there any other questions, Sheila?
I don't see any more listed on the questions. So thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you everyone for your questions. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. So we hope you're able to gain some very useful takeaways. And just a reminder that the link is going to be sent out after the call. And on behalf of Ellen Wilson, Managing Director, and myself, we look forward to your participation at our next webinar, which is going to be next Wednesday, May 6th, as Holly Zobel with Scout Simply and John Birch with Searchwide will present Staying Visible, Staying Relevant, and Staying Valuable when everything is shut down. The program will teach you best practices around using LinkedIn successfully. And lastly, I encourage you to follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn, and also to check us out at our website at hsmaidc.com. So on behalf of the entire advisory board, thank you for joining us today, and we are ending the call now.